Hello and welcome to the second annual podcast series of Top 10 MLB players at each position, ranked and presented by the baseball minds at Diamond Digest. I'm your host, Sean Huff, and today joining me to count down baseball's best second baseman right now is Joey Bohley. Joey, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm happy to be here.
I'm glad to hear it. This is usually a position, well, we'll get there. Before we talk about the state of the position this year, I'd like to show everyone what our top 10 second basemen were going into this season and who the war leaders among this field were last year. So, I have a graphic here. I'm going to show it. All right. So, entering the 2022 season, we voted on Marcus Semien. He was an almost unanimous number one, followed by Brandon Lowe, Ketel Marte, and Ozzie Albies. Jose Altuve was coming off a great year, but the controversy about him landed him down at number 5. Jake Cronenworth, who's now at first base, was number 6, and the reigning Rookie of the Year, Jonathan India, was 7th. Javi Baez placed 8th, fresh off signing his big contract. Jorge Polanco and Whit Merrifield rounded out the top 10. This year's field is very different from that. The war leaders were using Fangraphs WAR. Among the group in 2022 were Altuve, Andres Gimenez, and Jeff McNeil, all of whom had roughly 6-win seasons. Semien stayed strong. He was about 4 wins, as were Nico Hoerner and Kim Ha-sung. Brandon Drury had the best season of his career with 3 WAR. Then Gleyber Torres, Brendan Donovan, the rookie, and Thairo Estrada, an underrated gloveman, all had 2.7 WAR, and they rounded out the top 10. So, that's where things stood last year and how the field looks now. So, big question for you, Joey. Now that we've established the group, what did you think of this position while you were ranking it?
I thought it was pretty interesting. I thought it was kind of a little bit top heavy, which we see often at the second base position, just because of the disparity between offensive ability. But I thought there was a really good number of solid established second basemen like Altuve, McNeil, and Semien, as well as a number of young guys who are definitely worthy of some accolades. Your Andres Gimenez's, your Jazz Chisholms, Ozzie Albies, to name a few. So it was really actually one of the more difficult positions to rank because outside of the top 3 or 4, there was a lot of different places where you could have gone with it.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. There are a couple established stars, and then there's guys like Gimenez who had MVP type seasons last year but had never done it before. And then there are a lot of guys who were established and just barely played last year.
Yeah, Brandon Lowe comes to mind for one of those guys. He really dealt with injuries a lot last year. Only got 266 plate appearances and wasn't particularly impressive in them compared to what he had done in the past. Only 104 WRC plus, which is still great for a second baseman, but nothing compared to what we've seen him do before.
Yeah, the same was true with guys like Ketel Marte. Marte was competing for the number 1 spot on this list. I think he actually took number 1 a few years ago, and he just didn't really show anything in 22.
Yeah, he's just an average hitter, and his defense is starting to. I think it's looking like he's starting to lose a step a little bit in the field. See him play a lot. I mean, part of the reason why he's playing less center field is because the Diamondbacks just have a crazy number of super athletic outfielders coming up.
Yeah,
but also
we'll talk about Corbin Carroll on the center field episode for sure.
But Ketel Marte definitely looks like he's starting to lose a step a bit. His defense is starting to lag, and his bat struggled the last year too.
Yeah. Although I don't want to be like completely a downer here. This was a pretty deep group. There have been years where second base, you really struggle just to fill out a top 10. And when we vote, we fill out a top 15, just by the logic of if everyone thinks you're 11th, you're probably in the top 10. And there were more than 15 guys I would have been happy to rank this year.
Yeah, I was in the same boat. There were a couple of guys that I was not too thrilled about having to leave off, but I just ran out of room.
Yeah. So let's get into some of those guys who we may not have left off the top 15 altogether, but they are left off the composite top 10 for Diamond Digest. So, just missing the top 10, we had Donovan, Drury, and Kim, who we mentioned all of them earlier. They all had breakout seasons. Jorge Polanco, who fell off the list. He was injured a lot this season and had more of a down year. And currently baseball's number one prospect, Gunnar Henderson, was also someone who got a lot of consideration from our writers, but didn't quite crack the top 10. So, do any of these guys stand out to you as guys who you think we really missed on or you just want to talk about?
Yeah, I will say to start off, I'm a huge Gunnar Henderson fan. I drafted him in Dynasty League 2 years ago. And he was certainly paid off for me when Tatis went down this year. I was able to plug him in later in the season. So huge Gunnar Henderson fan, 126 WRC plus and 132 plate appearances in his first MLB season. The strikeouts are a little concerning, struck out 26% of the time, but he also walked 12% of the time. So the hope is that, they can start to even that out a little bit. I have a lot of optimism for Gunnar Henderson's future in the league. But, as a site, apparently that's not for 2023.
Yeah, it is really impressive for someone with that little major league time to get even on the just missed. But yeah, it does seem like we're a little down on Henderson, especially compared to where you are, excuse me. I really wanted to highlight Kim Ha-sung. I thought he had a great year. Part of it is bias. I saw 2 Padres games in person this year, and every time he would bat, the stadium would go crazy. They would chant his name. He's like a folk hero in San Diego. But even without that, the defense was incredible. He was in the 90-something percentile, that's above average. He was an above-average bat. And we've seen a lot of power from him in KBO. We haven't really fully seen it translate yet, but if it can translate even a little more, you could be looking at someone who's competing for the top half of this list for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and I think it's actually really unfortunate the situation he finds himself in, because I think he is a fantastic shortstop, and unfortunately, just because of the way things work, Xander Bogaerts is going to play shortstop instead of Kim, and I think that's sad. I think that'll only last a couple of years because Xander Bogaerts is already not very good at shortstop defense. So I think that Kim's defense is going to take an even bigger step forward metrically when he moves to second base. And then, with Tatis in the mix, it'll be interesting to see how those 3 guys kind of split middle infield spots, even though Tatis is probably going to get some more outfield looks. But I'm really excited for the Padres just in general. And Kim Ha-sung is a big part of it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. They should be the most fun team in baseball this upcoming year. So
absolutely.
Let's move into the actual list now. And before we do that, I just want to clarify for some people watching or listening, some guys who you might think of for this list, but aren't actually second baseman according to us. Jake Cronenworth, we already mentioned, and DJ LeMahieu, we have as a second baseman. So Yankee fans, please don't attack us. Don't worry, we will talk about LeMahieu. I know he's your MVP. Just not today. So into the actual list, we have at number 10, Nico Hoerner of the Chicago Cubs. Hoerner is entering his age 26 season and played his first full big league year in 2022. He was very productive. Over 135 games and 517 plate appearances, Hoerner posted a 106 WRC+, which was partially fueled by a career low K rate. He also chipped in 20 stolen bases to add to the offense. But where he shines is with the glove. He was 13 outs above average in 2022, which was tied for 5th among all middle infielders, all of which added up to 4 Fangraphs wins on the season, which, as we said earlier, was good for 5th among this field. So, Joey, talk to us about Hoerner.
Yeah, I mean, what I think of when I think of Nico Hoerner is, first of all, the prospect pedigree. He was a huge deal when he was coming up with the Cubs. And also, the defense, especially now with Dansby Swanson having taken a step forward this most recent season. He and Hoerner are going to be one of the best defensive tandems up the middle in the entire league. And with him taking a step forward offensively, I mean, I personally, I don't know about top 10 for Nico Hoerner yet, but I have no doubt that he will get there at some point. I think I need to see a little bit more with the bat in order to put him, firmly into the top third. But I mean, he ended up with 4 F4 this year. A lot of that was based on his defense, but he had a 106 WRC plus, only struck out 11% of the time. That's great for a young player. It's really what you like to see. Hoping the power will come around a little more. But even if it doesn't, he's got a really solid profile, especially with his speed. He stole 20 bases this year. A solid all-around player. I would love to have him on my team.
Yeah, he's really good. Especially, I love you bringing up Swanson. That's what the Cubs should have had last year. They signed Andrelton Simmons. It didn't quite work out for them.
Yeah.
Hoerner ended up playing most of the year at short, but the Swanson-Hoerner combo should be really fun to watch. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think even in limited playing time in 2021, he was an above-average bat.
Yeah, he had actually had the exact same WRC plus 106 in 2021, even though that was only in, like you said, 170 plate appearances as opposed to over 500. But the glove was really good in 2021 too. So I mean, he's pretty established with the glove. And the bat, I think, is going to come around. A lot of his StatCast stuff looked better this year. His barrel rate went up. His hard hit rate went up.
Even if there's some regression with
going.
the bat.
Yeah.
Even if he regresses, he should be right around league average, and a league average second baseman with a plus glove is a really solid player, especially at a position especially at a position that doesn't have too many stars.
Yeah, I like Nico Hoerner.
Yeah, and he's very young.
He is.
So let's move up to someone else very young, one 26-year-old to another. We have at number 9, Gleyber Torres. After 2 consecutive down seasons in 2020 and 2021, Torres bounced back, though not quite to the heights he reached early in his career. In 572 plate appearances in 2022, he hit 24 homers with a 115 WRC+. Those are very good numbers, not quite what he showed when he first came up, but very good, especially for a second baseman. Those, however, aren't the headline. The headline is Torres' glove. For the first time in his career, Torres was actually positive in defensive runs saved and UZR. And according to StatCast outs above average, he was a neutral 0. So, if the improvements with the glove are real, Torres is clearly going to be on this list for a while. I don't know if I'm buying in. What do you think?
I've never been a Gleyber Torres buy-in kind of guy. I mean, I think the glove advancing is encouraging. That being said, defensive metrics are so difficult. He doesn't really pass the eye test for me in terms of defense. He just looks like he's kind of lost. But like you said, the OAA was finally even this year after a negative 14 over his first 3 years. I will say this is the most innings he played at second base in a season, which is good. I will say he's clearly not a shortstop. Second base is definitely the right spot for him. But the bat, I think, is really what's going to make or break Gleyber Torres as an MLB player. Because if you look at 2018 and 2019, he had 62 home runs over those first 2 years and only has 30-some, 40-some since then. So the power has definitely struggled. The K rate is slightly – it took a dive in 2020 during the COVID year, but it's been creeping back up since then. He doesn't walk. He's not that good at stealing bases. I'm not sold personally. I think he still has a little bit of time to show it. But, I think Gleyber Torres is a perfectly fine second baseman. But I like having a good defensive infield personally. And second base is one of the most important defensive positions on the field after catcher and shortstop. So I think that having a minus glove, which I would still grade him out as, it hurts that. I think he would be better as a third baseman or a DH.
Yeah, I wouldn't bank on him being a plus defender. I'd bank on him being a little below average. I'm a little higher on Gleyber than you are. I don't think the bat is elite, but I think he's shown enough that he's going to be above average and can flash elite. So for the gamble, I'd just take him a little higher than you would, but I don't think he's a star, unfortunately. Early in his career, it really looked like he would be. And it's a shame that he's not. He would have been a really fun player.
Yeah, but, they've got plenty of fun guys.
Yeah, they do. Now let's go to someone. This is a pretty depressing list for the next few guys.
Yeah.
Let's move up to number 8 here, where we have Ketel Marte. Like we said earlier, Marte was actually number 1 on this list several years ago, but he played injured for a lot of 2022, and it really showed. He put up a 102 WRC plus and just 1.4 WAR. But in the previous seasons, he had slashed 318, 374, 543, good for a 138 WRC plus, and he's only going into his age 29 season. So clearly, to rank him in the top 10 at all, we are believing in some sort of bounce back, probably not to the MVP form he showed in 2019, but we do think he'll be good again. Do you think the injuries were that big of a deal, or are we just remembering past performance too much?
Well, I think part of the problem is that his 2022 BABIP was easily the worst in his career. It was only 276, which is pretty low, pretty well below average, which is usually around 320. And I mean, last year was 352. His 2019 MVP runner-up or third place year, it was 342. And his career BABIP is 311. So I think that tells a little bit of the story here. But going into that, I think that his injuries definitely affected his speed, which then affected his defense and the BABIP, all of these kinds of things. Because his batted ball data, like his StatCast data, doesn't look super different. His barrels were down a little bit, but his hard hit was on par with 2019.
Yeah, he's always been a big hard hit guy. He hits the ball hard.
Yeah. But, I think that the injuries and the losing a step really have hurt his profile as a whole. I'm hoping that he can get healthy, because when he's healthy, he's really fun to watch, and he's really impressive. But I think that he's struggled a lot in part due to the injuries. And, I'm hopeful that he can get back up. I mean, his K rate did tick up a couple percentage points, but so did his walk rate. So maybe we're getting to see Ketel Marte moving a little bit more towards a 3 true outcome kind of guy, as opposed to where before he was a little more of a gap to gap hitter. I think time will tell, as with many things, but his steamer projection is 3 WAR for 2023, and I think that the Diamondbacks would be happy with that.
Yeah, I think I'd actually take the over on that by a little bit. He's probably not going to be a 140 WRC plus guy anymore. But he's probably going to be very good. He's probably going to be a 125 to 130, which if he's hitting at that level with average-ish defense at second base, even just a little below average defense, I would definitely take that. And I would take that higher than 8th, I think. There's just the risk that he repeats 2022, or that his power doesn't fully come back.
Yeah, I think that the ceiling for the bat is among the top couple for second baseman for sure. But I think that his distribution of possible outcomes is a little skewed wide compared to the other guys. Yeah. There's a lot of uncertainty around Ketel Marte. Rooting for him, though.
I am too. He's a very, very fun player. Let's go to this one's even more depressing. We're continuing the theme of downturns caused by injuries at number 7, Ozzie Albies. Albies had a massive 2021 season, but he was plagued by broken bones in 2022, breaking his bird bones several times. His production took a big hit. He only played 64 games, but in that time, he only had a 93 WRC plus, and he was actually negative in defensive runs saved and UZR. Outs above average still loved him, though. They had him at, I believe, +4 in the limited playing time. If the weak season he just produced was due to injury, Albies should be able to bounce back to his 4-win type form, but if this is just the hitter he is now, which that's always been something of a concern with Albies, he could be off the list very quickly.
Yeah, the thing about Ozzie Albies is I don't I'm not sure about that 30 home runs. Like that was pretty crazy.
That
And he
was
also, I mean,
probably
I know he
juice
had,
ball.
yeah, he had 24 and 18 and 19, which was the beginning of the juice ball era. So I don't know. I really think he needs to stop switch hitting. I think
Yeah, he needs the Cedric Mullins approach.
he needs the Cedric Mullins approach. It's just hit left-handed because he mashes. No, he mashes lefties. So I guess the other way around. But he hits really well one way and not well the other way. And so he just needs to stop. I love switch hitters. I think they're fun. But if you
They're
can't
very
do
fun,
them both
but
at a high level, like if you're hurting yourself, I think that is something that they probably need to address. And I hope that they're looking at. The Braves are a very smart organization and they have him around for a while. So they've got time to make some tweaks with that.
yeah, they have him on the most criminal contract in baseball.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Someone's got to look into that.
Yeah.
But the injuries this year really did just really kind of killed his vibe. He had that freak accident where he hit the ground. I don't even remember if he hit the ball off of his foot or if it was just a funky swing against the Nats where he ended up breaking that.
I think it was a foul ball off his foot.
Yeah, but it was whatever it was a freak accident and he was out for the rest of the year pretty much. So I don't know. I'm not totally sold on Ozzie Albies. I never have been. He strikes out a lot compared to some of the guys that we're comparing him to, especially to a guy like Hoerner, who doesn't strike out very much at all. But he also strikes out less than some of the other guys. He's kind of right in the middle there. But I am concerned that we're starting to see some regression to the mean for Ozzie Albies. I don't think he was ever that 70 raw power, 60 gain power guy that we saw for a couple of years.
Yeah, I'm not sold on the bat at all. If you told me he had, like, if you came from 1 year in the future and told me Albies put up an 88 WRC plus in 600 plate appearances next year, I would just kind of say, yeah, that tracks.
I believe
really don't believe in the bat, and the downturn in the defensive metrics is really scary. He had a high floor because of the glove, and now he might not. The good thing with Albies, though, besides the fact that he still is pretty young, is that the injuries don't concern me much.
Yeah.
It's not like these were soft tissue injuries. He broke bones. That's not really a cause for concern.
Yeah. And I will say, I mean, well, I'm not going to give away too much yet, but I'm confident about where I ranked him because I do believe that his ceiling is higher than what it is. And I'm choosing to believe in him over some other guys. We'll see if that is worth it at the end. But I really do think that he can be like a 280 hitter with 20 home runs. I think that's perfectly reasonable for Ozzie Albies with plus defense and plus
at his
base
peak,
running.
he's a 4 or 5 win player.
Yeah, and that's kind of what, the 2019 Ozzie Albies is kind of what I think he can be.
Yeah. I will say I didn't rank Albies in my top 10. I'm very down on the bat.
I can absolutely respect that. I mean, a lot of my guys between like 15 and 5, we're all super close.
Yeah.
So.
Let's go to someone who's a lot more fun.
Still depressing story though.
Still depressing story, but really fun player. At number 6, Jazz Chisholm Jr., one of the most electric players in baseball. Chisholm will be 25 in 2023. And even though he only played 60 games last season, he was incredible in those 60 games. He put up a 139 WRC plus, fueled by 14 home runs and a .535 slugging percentage. He also added 12 stolen bases and above average defense, 3 outs above average for good measure. Chisholm always had the talent. We knew about that. We've seen the videos of him pulling home runs off DeGrom. We knew he had elite bat speed. 2022 was him kind of showing that he can put it together and be a star. Now he has to answer the question of if he can do it for a full season.
Yeah, I think that, one of the things that I've seen with Kim Ng talking about Jazz Chisholm is they don't even know where he's going to play next year. I think especially with the recent trade of Miguel Rojas, I think there's a chance that Jazz Chisholm ends up back at shortstop, which I don't want to
really
see
hope
that.
not. Yeah,
I don't want to see that because he really couldn't
he
play
was
short,
brutal
but
there.
he really can play second though.
He's great at second.
So that's a little concerning for me for his future. But the power speed combination, I think, is something to look forward to for sure. I think that he definitely has the potential to be like, I don't know, 20, 25 home run guy and to steal 20 or 25 bases. Like this is a real 30-30 candidate that we're looking at, which is somewhat rare for a second baseman. The problem with Jazz Chisholm, as with a lot of these other guys, is the strikeouts. Career 28% strikeout rate. He's a little bit of a free swinger, which is not super uncommon for guys his age, but he's really going to need to start to figure that out because he has a lot of pop in that bat, and if he starts making, more contact, he's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I don't think it's controversial to say that other than maybe the Hall of Famer we have higher up on this list, Chisholm is the most talented player here. Like that's
I can agree with that.
Yeah, but there are holes in his game. He swings and misses a lot.
Yeah.
He can't play short, and he might have to. And he hasn't been able to stay on the field for a full season.
Right.
But the talent is enormous, and he did just show that he can put it together.
And the tools are pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic about his future.
Some of the best bat speed I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about his future. I mean, his barrel rate was pretty solid, even in a small sample size. He hits the ball hard too. He just needs to hit the ball more. That's really
Yes.
that's pretty much what his deal is.
Yes, hit the ball more, play more.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Let's move into the top half of the list now. And unfortunately, it's someone else who was limited by injury this past season.
Poor guy.
And now, number 5, Brandon Lowe of the Rays. Unfortunately, he played only 65 games in 2022. And in that span, he wasn't that good. 104 WRC plus and a shade under 1 WAR, 0.9. That offensive performance is concerning, as Lowe isn't really a good glove guy, but his enormous 2020 and 2021 can't really be ignored. In those 2 seasons, he had over 800 plate appearances and produced a 141 WRC plus with 53 homers. If his bat comes even close to that again, 5th is going to look ridiculously low for Lowe. It's just, do we think his bat is going back to being plus, or is he a 120 guy next year?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to judge him because the injuries really did kill him, and he never got it going even when he was playing. He reminds me a lot of Jeff Kent, honestly, in terms of like a bat first second baseman with not a ton to offer with the glove.
Yeah. He's better with the glove than Kent.
Yeah, he is. He's just not, but he isn't. It's not part of his game.
No.
But I mean, looking at his StatCast metrics, his barrel rate was down, his hard hit rate was down, his XBA was down, his X slug was down, his X WOBA was down, everything was down.
Do you happen to know what the injury was?
I cannot remember what it was. I think it was
I will look.
He went back onto the injured list in September with a back thing, but I don't remember if that's what kept him out for the whole year.
I'll look it up.
If it was soft tissue, then
if it was soft tissue, I'm much more worried about him.
Yeah, I think it was something soft, but he's another one of these guys who's got a couple of years to figure it out. He's signed through 24 with club options for 25 and 26.
It was a stress reaction in his lower back.
Yeah, that could be a problem.
Like, that's something you can work around.
Yeah, but I mean, especially with baseball, that's so rotational. Something in your lower back, if it flares up, it could cause him a lot of issues again. And I really would like him to be that 2021 guy where the 137 WRC plus, 39 home runs. I mean, I would love to see that Brandon Lowe again, but I think we're more likely looking at like 2019 Brandon Lowe, where in half a season he hit 17 home runs, 130 WRC plus. So I think he can be a 30 home run guy.
Yes,
but definitely. He doesn't have the tools that some of the other guys on this list, though. Like, he can't field that well. He doesn't really run the bases that well.
Right. And he might not be a second baseman.
Yeah.
The Rays have a lot of middle infield talent. You could see Lowe next year on the left field list.
Yep. And I think that would be perfectly acceptable for him. Just tuck him back there and let him rake.
Yeah. The bat is real, and I think the bat is coming back. Like, this is a guy we had ranked at number 2 last year because we loved the bat so much.
And I think that was completely deserved after the years that he had, 2019 through 21.
Yeah, and I really hope we can see him play a full healthy season next year with a 130 type bat, because if that's the case, he's hitting 35 homers.
Yep. The power is there, and the contact tool is there. He's got to be on the field, though.
Yeah, and the eye is there. He has a great eye.
He does.
Let's move up to someone who can kind of be an example for Lowe in a way. At number 4, Jeff McNeil. McNeil's back on the list. We didn't rank him last year, but he's back in a big way. In 2021, he didn't hit at all, but that proved just to be a fluke, as he put up a 143 WRC plus in 2022 and a career-high 5.9 Fangraphs WAR. Aside from 2021, McNeil has been an absolute metronome. He has over 2,000 career plate appearances, and in that span, he slashed 307, 370, 458, totaling to a 131 WRC plus over his career. That's a premium bat at this position. So the 2021 season, clearly just a blip, not the real player. 2022 might not be the real player either. We haven't seen him be an MVP candidate before, but I think this is a fair ranking for him, even if the bat regresses a little back to like 130 more than 145.
I think.
I think we lost you there.
Seen from him.
Can you say that again? You cut out.
Yeah, sure. I think that 2021 was definitely an anomaly, considering the BABIP. I mean, 359, 337, 335, 280 in 2021, and then back up to 353 in 2022. So a lot of bad luck. His quality of contact, though, also wasn't as good, so that played into it.
It never has been, though.
No, I mean, he's a scrappy guy. That's what he's a scrappy guy. He's going to leg out base hits. He's going to hit, oppo balls into the hole and just leg it out, which is fine. I love that kind of guy. Consistently, I don't know if that's going to be the recipe to success for him. I mean, he's not going to hit 23 home runs again like he did in Juice Ball 19. But
if he can hit 12 home runs.
Yeah, and he's got the plus glove.
And he's got the plus eye.
And the plus eye. He doesn't strike out. He's very Nico Hoerner-like in terms of his profile. Or should I say Nico Hoerner is very Jeff McNeil-like in terms of his disciplinary profile. He
might be an 80 bat to ball.
Yeah, he is incredible bat to ball skills. I mean, I think he is a true talent 307 hitter like he has been for his career. And he walks enough to boost that on base percentage up even more. So I think Jeff McNeil at 4 is perfectly fair. I think it's exactly where he belongs. And let's see if he does it again. Yeah,
this is a real hitter. There aren't that many guys on this list where you can just pencil them in for a 125 at least WRC plus next year. McNeil, you can. This is a serious bat at this position. Even if he doesn't end up at this position, who knows? He has a lot of defensive versatility.
He does, and I love that too.
Yeah, this is an excellent player. Honestly, I like him even more than this, and I'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll reveal our lists at the end. So let's move up now to number 3. It's last year's champion, Marcus Semien, now of the Rangers. Semien had a slow start to the year, and a lot of people wrote him off or just kind of ignored him after that. But he was still very good in 2022. He actually led all players with 724 plate appearances and posted the first 2020 season of his career, blowing past both those marks, 26 homers, 25 steals. The offense was down on the whole, only a 107 WRC plus, but that slow start I mentioned was a big factor in that. Since the start of June, he was at a 128, much more in line with what we expect from Semien. There is clearly still an MVP candidate inside him. He was plus 8 OAA and did have that big second half. He just didn't show it for the full season, putting up only 4 wins instead of 6 or 7 like he had been, making him an MVP finalist. Do you think he's getting back to those heights, or are we just seeing a very good player rather than a top 20 player in baseball?
I think Marcus Semien is only very good, which is still very good, obviously, but
Yeah.
his career is somewhat
Weird.
enigmatic to me. He only has 3 seasons over a 100 WRC plus, and 2 of those were over 130 in 2019 with Oakland, where he had that huge year. And
Yeah,
then,
two of them he came in third in MVP voting.
Yeah, and then this most recent year, I don't really know what to make of it. Like you said, you talked about the slow start. I like the glove. I like, that at 31 he has the best base running season of his career.
Yeah, I love the glove.
I love that. I love the speed. The bat to ball worries me a little bit. He's not Jeff McNeil with the bat, but
he doesn't have bad contact skills, but he's not elite.
Yeah, but he's a career 255 hitter, and even in those seasons where he's been over 130, his best full season batting average is only 285, which is good, but it's not an elite bat to ball. So I think that we do see Marcus Semien settling around a 110, 115 WRC plus, with the plus glove, with the plus power, with the plus base running for his position. And I think that he is probably a top 4 or 5 second baseman for the next couple of years until age starts to catch up to him.
Yeah, I think you put the whole package together, the arguably plus glove, at least plus, the above average base running, the good bat. It's not going to be a great bat anymore, probably. So much of it was that he could just pull homers, and he can't quite do that as much in the big Home Depot in Texas.
Right.
But it's going to be a plus bat. You put that all together, that's probably a 4-win player.
Yeah.
Especially he produces a lot of volume too.
Yeah, and having a known quantity like that is worth more than we can really attribute to it.
Yes.
If you know that this is going to be a 3.5 to 4 WAR guy every year, then that's huge. Knowing that you're going to have that plug and play. He has the durability. I think that he's another one of these guys where we've seen them play shortstop before and hope never to again. Keep him at second base and he will be fine. Especially, Corey Seager and Marcus Semien is one of the best.
Yeah, that's a great middle infield.
Yeah, it's a different great than the Cubs have, because Semien and Seager are going to hit, but Swanson and Hoerner aren't going to let anything through. So I'm pretty high on Marcus Semien.
Yeah,
I just need him to keep it ticking for a couple more years before he starts to regress.
Yeah, and even in his down year, like 2022 was a down year for him, at least compared to what he had been doing. He was still 4th at the position in WAR.
Yeah, he was still a 4-win player, and
he's very good.
Yeah, we take that, like as they say.
Absolutely. So Semien was a known quantity. We had him number 1 last year. Let's go to the surprise of the list. Number 2, Andres Gimenez. Gimenez, almost out of nowhere, had an enormous 2022. Over 557 plate appearances. He slashed 297, 371, 466 for a 140 WRC plus, adding in 20 stolen bases at a massive 13 outs above average. Roll all that together and you get 6.1 WAR, 5th among all AL position players, and a 6th place finish in AL MVP voting. Gimenez had never had a season like this before, but clearly we're buying in. We're putting him at number 2. Are we buying in too much? Are we too excited about him?
I don't think so. I think that because he's so young and because he's already established what his ceiling is, it really allows for him to kind of have some growing pains. Like if he puts up a 20 or a 120 WRC plus next year, like no one's going to be that mad, especially because considering the circumstances under which he was acquired in the Francisco Lindor trade. And I mean, he was a top prospect. He was a really highly ranked prospect for the Mets when they traded him. So, the expectations were always there for him. I think this year was really big for him to slow. Like, I saw him play in Detroit in August, and it looked like when he was at the plate that everything was kind of slowing down for him. Like, it really looked like that he was incredibly comfortable. He's obviously very comfortable on defense, one of the best defenders at the position for sure. And I think that that's something that you don't see often with a lot of young players. I mean, a lot of guys, you hear this a lot more in football, but they let the game speed up on them, and they kind of get drowned by everything going on around them at a new level. And I didn't see that from Jimenez this year. So hopefully, for Cleveland's sake, they have a really fun young team with a lot of guys that came out of nowhere. And I think that they're fun. And I think that Jimenez is a big part of that. And I don't think he's going to have 140 WRC plus next year, but I definitely think he can be a 4.5 win player, especially with that defense. I'm a big fan. I like him.
Yeah, that's the one downside with Jimenez is he's great. And we expected him to be a solid everyday player with the glove and with the contact skills. He's never done this before. Like, he's never hit at this level, even in the minors. And that's the one downside. 140 is probably not repeatable. It doesn't need to be for him to be one of the best players at the position. But I'm honestly not even sure 125 is repeatable.
Yeah, the profile is definitely advantageous. I would see him like to walk a little more, strike out a little less, but I can say that about pretty much every hitter in the league.
Yes.
The big thing that I would look at is, again, going back to the BABIP. I mean, it was a 350 plus BABIP, which is pretty high.
Yeah, that's not sustainable.
But he's got decent speed though. So, I mean, he can probably be an over 300 guy, but he's not going to be a 350 guy for sure. I think that the StatCast numbers, if they continue to improve in terms of the barrel rate and the hard hit, he took a huge leap from 2021. If he can keep those at around the same level, then he'll probably be able to pull out a 115 or a 120 with the plus defense and the plus speed, which puts him probably still around that 4 or 5 WAR that we talked about. So if he can play the full season and if he can keep a lot of his peripherals in the same spot, then they're going to get a lot of good results out of him.
Yeah, he's a very good player. Clearly, our writers love him. He got first place votes in this exercise. We placed him at number 2 overall. I don't love him quite so much, but I still think he's very, very good.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much where I'm at.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to number 1. I don't think this is a surprise. He's number 1 with a mandate, and it's Jose Altuve. You knew this was coming. It wasn't close. Altuve received 22 of the 26 possible first-place votes, and after a return to form in 2021, he exploded for 2022. It was the best season of his career, possibly a Hall of Fame career, so that's really saying a lot. He had a career-high 164 WRC plus in 604 plate appearances and slashed 300, 387, 533 with 28 home runs. Mostly thanks to that line, he had 6.6 WAR, so this is a 7-win season, which was just a 10th of a win off of his total in his MVP year. He was 3rd in the AL in Fangraphs WAR, in WRC Plus, and in WOBA, and he was top 10 in each of the triple slash categories. Say whatever you want about him. He's controversial. Can't deny. He's a great player, and he's number 1 here with a mandate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any disagreement with that, honestly. I mean, he was fantastic. I mean, one of the things that I was most excited about from him this year was that he's stolen the most bases that he has since 2017 when he was 27, and he's going into his age 33 season, and he stole 18 bases in his age 32 season. He had his highest walk rate of his career in his age 32 season. I thought he looked really good. He just looked so comfortable. He hit everything. and he
Yeah.
walked. Like I said here, he walked, and the power was there. Most home runs. I mean, second most home runs in his career, behind 2019, which does that was a little bit of a controversial year, especially at the beginning part. And 2021, he had 31 where he broke out again last year. But Ozzie Altuve has been a really good hitter for a long time. I'm pretty confident that he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I'm not confident that he's going to be a second baseman that much longer.
How
the
was
defense?
The last year?
It was fine. It was like a 1 OAA. But I think that especially with some of the prospects that the Astros have coming up.
Yeah, the Astros are a machine.
Yeah, I think that we could see him get moved to left field DH. Yeah. I think him and Yordan Alvarez, Jose Altuve timeshare in the outfield, and then the DH just kind of rotating those two guys through. I could totally see that happening, especially once Michael Brantley retires, which has got to be soon.
Yeah, this wasn't close for me. There were some positions where I went into it and I was like, okay, well, these are the candidates. Which one do I put number one? No, I went into second base knowing it's Jose Altuve and it's everyone else. He just had an MVP type season, and it wasn't the first time. He's a great player. He looks so impressive at all times. There are holes in his game. He's not perfect. You can get a high fastball by him. He chases a lot up out of the zone. But the bat-to-ball skill is really good. The power is really good. The defense is average to above average. And he's far and away the best bat at this position.
Yeah, it's just another of those things where it's like, all right, well, we know what he is. How much longer can he be that?
Yeah, and honestly, at this point, probably another 4 or 5 years.
I'm sure the Astros hope that.
Yeah,
he's signed through. He's only signed through 24. He's got 2 more years.
Interesting. I think he has an option though, doesn't he?
I don't think so. Huh. Doesn't look like it. Free agent 2025.
Wow.
So he'll be 34,
and he'll stick somewhere.
He will stick because
he can really hit.
Talked about with the bat to ball skills. I mean, he's got them.
Yeah, he can really hit. This is one of the best hitters in the league, and probably one of the top 15 players in baseball. Looking forward to next year.
Still, somehow, after all this time.
Yeah. So, we did it. We revealed the list our writers as a whole put together. You ready to talk about our lists?
I am. I think we have a little bit of disagreement on some of these guys, so I'm excited to talk about it.
I think we do. All right, I have it up on screen here, but for those of you who are just listening to this and aren't watching, I'll read it off. To recap, as a whole, we ranked Altuve, Jimenez, Semien, McNeil, Lowe, Chisholm, Albies, Marte, Torres, and Hoerner. On my personal list, I had Altuve 1, McNeil 2, Semien 3, Jimenez 4, Lowe 5, Chisholm 6, Marte 7, Hoerner 8, Torres 9, and Kim Ha-sung 10. Joey, you want to read yours off?
Yeah, I had Jose Altuve number 1, Jimenez 2, McNeil 3, Semien 4, Jazz at 5, Ozzie Albies 6, Brandon Lowe 7, Gunnar Henderson 8, Kim Ha-sung at 9, and Ketel Marte at 10.
Okay, you know what I'm going to ask you right away here.
Oh, it's the Ozzie Albies question.
We'll get there, but Gunnar Henderson in the top 10.
I really like his projectability. I talked about this a little bit. I was really high on him in that Dynasty League. And I'm kind of trying to stick by that as long as I possibly can so that I look right. But I really like his profile, and I really like the way that he plays the game. I think that he would have been a good shortstop. I would have had him in the top 10 shortstops. So why would I not have him in the top 10 second baseman? That was my logic.
Yeah, I get that. The strikeout rate worried me a little too much to put him in the top 10 just because this is a deeper position than I've seen before. But it would not surprise me if at the end of the year he's 6th or 7th in this group in WAR.
I believe in Mike Elias, and I believe in the Astros 2.0 player development machine that is the Orioles.
Yeah, I think at this point you can't deny it.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a guy with a capital G.
I really hope so. The Orioles are really, really fun. So, yeah, let's talk about Albies.
Yeah, it was one of those things where we've seen what he can be. And like I said, I don't think he's going to be that 30 home run guy again. But the tools are there. The freak injuries have really hurt him. I wasn't that off from the rest of our writers. I had him at 6 as a whole. We had him at 7. I will say this is his last chance for me. He's got to go show me something this year, and he's got to stop switch hitting. Please, Ozzie Albies, if you're listening, stop switch hitting.
Yeah, I'll say I had Albies at 14. If he announced that he stopped switch hitting, that would have moved him up several spots on my list. So, just looking here, there don't seem to be any big disagreements between the 3 lists on screen. You and I like Kim a lot. Kim didn't quite make the composite list. He was 12th. I like McNeil a little more. I have him at 2nd. I just really believe in that bat. Lowe, Chisholm, we're all about the same on. Marte, there's a little bit of a disagreement. I'm pretty high. You're pretty low.
I still have him I still have him in my top 10 though. Like, I think that's important to note. I still have him at 10. Another one of those things where the tools are there. I need him to stay healthy, and I need him to stay at the level that I know he can be at.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that ranking. I'm banking on the upside a little more. One guy I wanted to point out, didn't make my list, didn't make your list, didn't make the composite list. Jorge Polanco. How close were you on him?
I'm going to be honest, not very. I think part of it is just kind of the bias of he plays in Minnesota, and I really don't watch the Twins that much, along with the fact that he really didn't play a full season. He's a good hitter. His defense is garbage. And he's not a particularly good base runner. And as you guys might have kind of figured out, I'm really big on the tools. And Jorge Polanco is not toolsy, but boy, can he hit. The problem is that he's really only hit in 3 seasons out of the 8 or whatever that he's been in the league. So that's my concern with him. If we ranked to 20, he probably would have been 17 or 18. This is, I think, a show me year for Jorge Polanco. I think it's a walk year for him.
I think
it is. He has club options for 24 and 25.
Okay.
I know we've seen the 4-WAR Jorge Polanco. We've also seen the
1-WAR
Jorge Polanco. Yeah. So I don't know. I wasn't confident in him enough in order to actually put faith in him. So I didn't rank him. You didn't rank him. A lot of people. Oh, I guess you did rank him, but he was outside your top 10.
Yeah, I ranked him 11th.
I think I was actually only a couple people didn't rank him. Oh, wait, I did. I had him 12th. What am I talking about? Okay. But that's where he was. He was at 12. But it's the same idea is that he, I still have a lot of concerns about him, and that's why he's at 12.
Okay. So we're in agreement here. Jose Altuve, everyone was pretty much in agreement. Before we go, is there anyone we haven't mentioned who you'd like to plug a little bit? Someone you snuck into your top 15 maybe, or who you think could be there next year?
Yeah, definitely. I think that the amount of Jonathan India disrespect that I have witnessed over the last couple of weeks from our Diamond Digest writers is a little ridiculous. I think that he is absolutely top 15. I know he was really bad last year, but he was also dealing with injuries. So I'm looking at Baseball Reference. I mean, he had a 116 OPS plus, won Rookie of the Year. Last year was hurt, had a 91 OPS plus. I think that Jonathan India is a really talented player. I mean, he was a first rounder, 5th overall out of Florida, where he was on a couple of really good teams there, the likes of Brady Singer and Casey Mize, who
the glove is terrible.
The glove's really bad. I'm not going to lie. The glove's really bad. He grades out. He's probably a DH or an outfielder. I wouldn't put him anywhere near the infield. but he really can hit. I really think he can. He had the 376 on base in that Rookie of the Year campaign in 2021, which I really like. Any guy who's on base over 370 is definitely top tier valuable
really
in
good
my
hitter.
eyes. Yeah. So I think that Jonathan India has something to prove this year. I wasn't confident enough that he is going to prove it in order to put him higher. But I think if he goes out and has another 120-ish WRC plus season, I think we need to start talking about Jonathan India again.
He has the type of ceiling at the plate where we could all look terrible next year for not having ranked him. The one guy I want to talk about is Brendan Rodgers. I think quietly made a lot of improvements at the end of last year. I wasn't quite in enough to put him in my top 15, but I frankly don't have much faith in the Rockies. But
I don't either.
It really wouldn't surprise me if Rodgers comes out and puts up 3.5 WAR next year, and all of a sudden we're seeing someone who's in 9th or 10th on this list.
Yeah, I mean, he had a pretty solid season last year. Right around average in terms of the OPS. He was a little bit of above average hitter. 21, he was almost 800 OPS guy. The problem for him, I think, is that, obviously the defense improved. His batted ball profile concerns me a little bit. He led the league in grounding and double plays last year.
Yeah.
Hits a lot of ground balls, which is not
that's the problem, especially at Coors Field.
Yeah, and so he needs to hit the ball in the air more in order to be super successful in his situation. Yes. Even with doing that, he was still a 4-ish, 3.5 WAR kind of player, which is, again, like we talked about, like having that is super solid. But I think that if he's going to take a step, he really needs to take a different approach to his batted ball profile.
All right, that's going to do it for our discussion here. We're going to, for those of you watching, you can see the text crawl at the bottom. We're going to plug shamelessly here in the last minute. Our website is diamonddigest.com. Our Twitter is @diamond_digest. And our Instagram is diamond.digest. Joey, anything else you want to say to the listeners here?
Just one last guy, Luis Garcia on the Nats. He's going to hit 310 this year, but his on base is going to be 320. Great bat to ball, nothing else. It's coming.
I hope it does. That sounds like a really, really fun season for a miserable team.
Yeah, he's really frustrating to watch, I'm going to be honest.
But that's going to do it for today. I don't know when all of you will be listening to this, but hopefully it's sometime soon. Hopefully you enjoy it enough to come back for our next episode. I don't know if Joey will be back for the next one or for any others, but we'll see.
We'll see.
All right. Hope you guys liked it. And if you didn't, send us your own lists. See if you think you can do better than us. All right. See you, everyone. Oh, and go baseball.